So for those of you who are new, and there are some people I know that are kind of new and haven't been through all of our previous webinars, we kind of follow this pattern where we present a prepared information and then we open it up for questions, for any Q&A, that any question that anybody answers. This is the time to be asking those questions. It's because what we don't want is people going into the prison system and saying they didn't know something or other. And so we have this whole series of webinars that we call Preparing for Surrender. And this is a replay of what we did yesterday, but it is really the first in this 10 to 12 part series. Each webinar lasts about 60 minutes of prepared remarks, but they typically go 90 minutes to 2 hours. There's no question anybody can't ask us. And I always present this kind of PowerPoint to kind of guide you along. And I want you to know what you're going to be expecting today on today's webinar. So let me find the PowerPoint that I created, which is right here. Okay, and in the chat, if you want access to this PowerPoint, I am going to put that into the chat so that you guys can download it at your convenience. I will put this thing as soon as I stop sharing this into the chat so that you guys can see them. But of course, it will be available on our website under the webinar section. Now, what we are discussing today, if I could make this a little bit bigger, I wonder. I don't see it that I can, but I hope you guys can see that. Can you, Justin, could you give me a thumbs up if you could see all of that, you guys? Okay.
Yes.
What we're talking about today is something that we hope you will take into consideration. We know that everybody that's kind of in our community, you probably came from White Collar Advice, which is our marketing channel. And you've probably, I'm going to guess that you are somebody from a white collar background, you're a professional, you spent a lot of time in your career preparing for the career that you wanted to build. And I want you to kind of think back to all of those preparations that you made when you were going into that career that you were doing. If you're going into college, you went through SAT programs, you did everything you possibly could to learn about how do I prepare best. But what happens for people that come into the criminal justice system all too frequently is they don't do a lot of preparation. They don't know what to do because they're so traumatized by United States of America versus your last name. And it's so hard to understand and comprehend that all you do is you hire a defense attorney, and the defense attorney is going to be courageous, I hope, and help you through all the way through the journey. But we know that you're going to be going through a lot of time wondering, why did this happen to me? What's going to happen going forward? What can I do with my life? Well, if you don't ask us those questions, we can't give you the answer. And what really troubles us is when people come into our community and they get to prison and they said, I didn't know this. I didn't know this was going to happen. We want to make sure that that everybody that's in our community feels as if they have had a guide to help them along this journey. So if any of you, I know a lot of you have worked with my partners, Justin and Sam and Larry and the other talented people that are on our team, but I don't talk to everybody because my work is different. I'm working on the institutional side of our business, but I was in prison for 26 years and there's nothing I don't know about that system. But if I don't know the answer, I'm going to go to a subject matter expert and get you the answer from somebody who used to work in the prison system as either a former warden or a former healthcare administrator or former head of the home confinement system, even the former directors of the Bureau of Prisons. You can find all of that information. For those of you who don't know, you could find all of that information right on our website. And I'm going to share it with you again so you know right where to go to find it. And the reason I share this with you is for you to recognize, just like you had to prepare for your career before you became successful in whatever career it was you led, you have to educate yourself on what's going to follow in the weeks, months, years, and decades ahead. And everything that's available that you pay for at White Collar Advice, you can get for free right here. We give away everything for free here. But there's so much information, it's sometimes hard to digest it all. So for example, these subject matter experts, we hire these people, like this guy who's a former chief of US probation, this guy who's the former director of the Bureau of Prisons, these federal judges who talk about sentencing, this person who used to be in charge of home confinement and halfway houses across the country in the Bureau of Prisons, another former warden, and we have many more that we retain and interview, but because they're either still in the Bureau of Prisons or they're in this type of segment of their journey where they can't be public yet. But all of these are resources that can help you as you're facing these enormous challenges that happen for anybody who's going into, the Bureau of Prisons. And it's not only you, it's your family. It's understanding, what do I do? If you don't know, right now, I'm going to guess you don't even know the questions to ask. And that's the reason we implore you, go through the resources that we offer here so that you could ask us better questions and so that you could really understand the journey ahead. The one thing that I promise you is that I will never ask you to do anything that I didn't do, and anybody on our team will do the same. We're really scrupulous about wanting to make sure that we're not doing something that you can't ask us a question. Where did you get that information? Okay, why are you telling me to do this? Because there's a lot of information where you're going into this bureaucracy that you're not going to know. Why does this matter? What's the purpose of this? The only purpose that we can offer you before you surrender, we can't undo the past, right? We can't undo what a prosecutor charged you with or what a judge sentenced you to. We wish that we could have communicated with you before you were ever a target of an investigation. And maybe based on the depth and breadth of our experience, you may have made decisions to protect yourself so that you wouldn't have become a target. Okay, but we can't change that, nor can we change if a judge already sentenced you and you didn't prepare yourself well for where you wanted to serve your time. It's much harder for us to make those changes right now. And I don't know if the Giacomini's, are you on the webinar right now, the Giacomini family? If you are, could you unmute yourself? So I don't hear the Giacomini's, but they've been on our webinar, and this guy's a surgeon. Oh, there's John.
Yeah, here we are.
Hi, John. I'm really working right now to try and help members of our community understand the challenges we are facing in resolving a problem for you right now that we hope, and I've got some other ideas since yesterday that I need to talk with you about offline. But I like to tell the people that if we could have communicated with you before you were sentenced, I think we could have blocked a lot of the challenges that you're going through right now. Could you tell the community, would you be willing to tell the community about the challenges you're facing?
Absolutely. So, as most of you, we did a plea bargain, and of course we have plea bargain regret, but that's another story. We had a sentencing hearing on June 12th, July 12th, excuse me. And we were shocked that we were sentenced to serve time. At about that point, we contacted you guys, and Larry right away asked me or helped me to write a letter to the court requesting assignment at Terminal Island. We did that on the 23rd of July. They received it on the 25th. Nothing happened. And then on the 16th of August, I met with my pretrial services person, and she informed me that I'd been assigned to Seattle Federal Detention Center, which is almost 900 miles from my home. I called Sam, and Sam said, call somebody in the court, call the court clerk and find out what's going on. Did they receive your stuff? I called, no response, nobody called back. I kept calling and finally got a hold of somebody very junior and said, oh yeah, we got it. Let me see what I can do. 2 days later, I got an email from my attorney instructing me to never contact the court. However, they did have that the court had sat on my request until August 12th. And August 12th, they had made a recommendation, an amendment judgment recommending Terminal Island. So we informed my probation officer about this. We sent, with Larry's direction, we sent letters with the amended judgment to Grand Prairie. No response except for a very cursory, bounce back. I tried to call there. There is no option to get a person. It's an endless loop. And they say, if you want to write to us, we'll get back to you in 3 weeks. My surrender date is next week, September 28th. So we kept pushing on this, and we have spoken with Michael and spoken to everybody else. I have a significant medical history. We've assembled all that documentation. The workup is still in progress. We have sent this to a medical officer and to one of the wardens, and now we're just waiting. But as of this point, we're going to be flying, not driving, but flying to Seattle next week, and we'll be in a federal detention center, not a low security prison. I have a score of 0, but we'll be going to an FTC. Michael's point is very good. If we had known about you guys prior to sentencing, we would have done things very, very differently. That's water under the bridge, but you guys have been incredibly helpful up to this point.
Yeah, John, I want to thank you for that, because I think first of all, I want to tell people is that this is not going to be the last time that complications surface. Had we been a part of the community from the beginning, we would have hired those subject matter experts before sentencing to provide your attorney with information they can use to ask the judge to put in a statement of reasons why they're going someplace, and really prep the information so that the problem never surfaced. Now, ironically, I got this text from one of the wardens that we hired, John, and this is what he wrote me this morning. Let's just say that guy gets to Terminal Island. I don't know what will happen, but let's say that we make that happen. He asks me, do I get a bonus? Okay, that's the system. This is a guy who's supposed to be helping, but that's the Bureau of Prisons. That's when we're hiring these people, that's what they're doing. They're all in it, really just saying, what's in it for me? And I wrote him a very long letter this morning and said, look, we are here to advocate for people who have already been racked over the coals by attorneys or whatever, and we're here to advocate for them and to help their attorneys help them. So you're either going to be on the team or off the team, but I'm not going to pay you a bonus for something that I've already paid you to do, which is just help us. And I'm saying all of this to all of you because there are going to be a lot of these challenges going forward. I hope that we are successful with John, either in getting him transitioned to the prison he wants to go. If not that, getting him on the CARES Act, transition to home confinement. But this is ongoing advocacy. The questions what I want all of you to be thinking about as you're going through this is asking, how many times through this process have I been in the dark? How many times have I going through this process have I expected to have something that didn't happen? I can't change what happened before. Nobody on our team can, but we can tell you, hey, let's pepper our file and build these tools, tactics, and resources so when challenges come, we are ready to have a response. But ideally, we want that response to happen long before the event. And so that wherever you are in the journey, before your pre-sentence investigation report, before sentencing, before designation, after sentencing, while you're in the halfway house, while you're on supervised release, if you're in this community, that's where we are with you all the way to the end, giving you that information. But we need you to help us populate a record so that when it comes time to advocate for you, we've got the best tools and resources to either help you, because once you get sentenced, you're effectively advocating for yourself. Your attorney's kind of out of the loop at that point. And it becomes very important to understand, how do I pull these levers within the system to help myself? And so it's very important for us to get that off the call, because this is the first webinar in a long series where we are going to be providing a lot of information to help you understand a labyrinthine environment that is very different from anything you've ever experienced in America. And I know that, Justin, you wanted to say something about that. So before I get on to the next slide, please share your insight.
Thank you very much. Good to see everyone. Kind of like when you watch a TV show, sometimes there's a summary of the season. And if we were to do a recap of all of our webinars so far, we have dozens of stories of regret from all stages of the journey. On the first webinar, someone said they regretted hiring a specific lawyer who was a U.S. attorney, who implied, because I'm a U.S. attorney, you're going to get the outcome you want, got a higher than guideline sentence. Regret over not asking for a specific prison or programming or preparing properly for the probation report. We discussed that yesterday with a client who got 24 months. Lawyer didn't ask for the right prison. Now we're trying to get him redesignated. Can't guarantee that we'll be successful. So part of what we want to do is ensure, as you traverse this system, you are not continuing to look back with regret. I woke up this morning to 17 missed phone calls from a really distressed wife whose husband is in prison. And it's a story where you've got to embrace that prison is a fundamentally different world. And Michael will get into the specifics, but in some, her husband's in prison. And when I was in prison, I left my locker open. Michael left his locker open. He said, JP, you need something, go get it. Fine. I never locked my locker. But apparently he had been in prison for like 2 weeks, left his locker open, and thought someone stole some food from his locker that he left open. And in America, if you get robbed, you probably go to the police. If your car gets broken in, you go to the police. But he didn't understand this foreign world of imprisonment, and he did something wrong. He went to a correctional officer and said, I think someone stole from my locker, and it launched this investigation. Of course, he is loathed and despised within this prison. And had he prepared, he'd have better understood, one, you should lock your locker, or two, if you think something's stolen, move on, but it's a fundamentally different world. And Michael had addressed a story like this with a previous person who mentioned in prison that he had cooperated. And of course, it's gone wrong for him. We can't undo that he ran to a correctional officer, and his journey is going to be tougher. So I shared this story with you because now it's harder on his wife, and he's going to have a much harder experience. So we don't want any of you to move forward and then look back with regret, like so many of you have. And it's why I continue to say it's one thing to attend the webinar. Michael used to say this to me in prison. That sounds good. Are you going to do the work? Are you going to follow through? Report back to me with an action plan. And sometimes I didn't. And sometimes I did. We want all of you to implement what we teach, but that does require work. And lastly, I'll say, I summarized yesterday, many people say to me, when Sam or me or Larry or anyone discusses disciplinary infractions with someone, half of the time someone will cut me off and say, dude, I'm not stupid. I'm not going to get engaged in, I'm not going to have an iPhone. I'm going to do my job. I'm not going to get a disciplinary infraction. We don't need to waste time on it. And my response is, 5 years ago, did you think it would be your name versus the United States of America? 3 years ago, did you think your actions were criminal? 2 years ago, did you think your business partner would roll over on you and go to the feds? Things happen. Let's prepare for it just in case. That's why we're here, but it requires a great deal of work and resolve. And we share these stories because we can learn from the good as much as the bad. And with that said, Michael, thank you. I'll let you transition into the presentation.
Yeah, so I dropped, just for those of you who don't know, in the comments section, which you can see at the bottom of your screen, there's a section there that says comments. And if anybody has comments, please feel free to drop them in that chat section. And I hope that Justin and Sam and Larry will be responsive in responding to those questions during the webinar. If you want to interrupt me and just unmute yourself, feel free to do so. If at the end of the webinar, I always open up for any personal questions. We're also going to, at the end of the webinar, go through our new calculator that our new partner we're designing together, so that you can kind of project release dates, given the whole complexity of earned time credits and all. But Justin is making a very good point. That is, if you don't understand the system, you can potentially make decisions while you're in prison that exacerbate the complexities of serving time. They make it even harder. And sometimes they don't make sense. I can't give you all of that in one 60 to 90 minute webinar any more than any of you can tell me everything about your profession in 60 to 90 minutes. I was in there for 26 years. I learned a lot, and I want to share that with everybody. And we'll answer anything on these things, but you have to know, okay, I've got to ask questions here and interact, and we will be there to help you through that. And that leads me to the second slide on the webinar, which I will share the screen with you again. And on the second slide, you're saying I'm talking about admissions, because a lot of people don't even have a clue on what does it mean to surrender to prison. What's going to happen on these first days, and how are my conversations and decisions that I make on that first day, how are they going to, what influence are they going to have on every stage of the journey ahead? If you don't understand that, then you could potentially make some decisions that make it more difficult for you to advocate for yourself. Just like John, before sentencing, didn't know how to prepare his attorney to make an appropriate request at sentencing so that he would get to the institution he wanted. When you surrender to prison, you're going to go through this admissions process, and people are going to ask you questions, both staff and other people in prison. And if you don't have an understanding of prison, you're not going to be able to use all of your critical thinking skills in such a way that's always thinking, how is every decision I am making today going to influence this journey ahead? And he described this fellow who was on our webinar. And I really feel as though I failed him in not helping him understand, hey, when you're answering questions, remember, you are no longer living in, your affluent community where most people are law-abiding citizens. You're in an unusual world. Now, if you're on this webinar, I would say the chances are 9 out of 10 that you're either going to a minimum security camp or a low security prison. And in those environments, they're very different from a medium security prison or a high security prison. And you will never mix with people who are categorized as medium or high security prison. In fact, most of the people with whom you will interact with are going to be somewhat like you. But remember that prisons are very different communities. There are going to be some people there that may have been convicted of, falsifying their mortgage application, and they're doing a 24-month sentence. That's what they got caught for. But that doesn't mean they're not, a criminal, a real predatory type criminal that they just didn't get caught for. So they will be in that same type of environment. What you have to understand is that you don't have to interact with those people, okay, while you're there. If somebody is asking you questions about your case, why are you here, how much are you serving, things of that sort, the best response is to be circumspect and just say, I want to be respectful of everybody here, but I'm serving my own sentence. I regret where I am here, and all I want to do is get home and be, we use the analogy of being a submarine, be underground, under the water, under the surface of the water, floating through a lot of maybe tumultuous waters where there's storms and so like that, but you're just sailing through, trying to be invisible. You have your periscope up so you know what's going on around you, but you want to be invisible in that environment. Because if you're not invisible, you're going to attract attention. And this poor fella that went to prison, the first day he's there, people start asking him questions. Did you cooperate? Do you have a 5K1? And his response resulted in exactly what Justin just described, being completely ostracized by the community and having his belongings stolen and him being targeted for abuse. And there's just no reason for that. There's no reason for that. If you remember, wait a minute, I'm not going to a really high security prison where I have to respond to that. Even if you're going to a detention center, You will only be confined with other minimum and low secure people of your security level. You'd be what's called a work cadre, because the policy of the Bureau of Prisons is they do not mix what you would call sentenced people with pretrial people. Detention centers typically are for pretrial people being held that didn't get a bond, or they've got immigration problems or something along those lines. So they don't mix. You're going to be on a separate housing unit with other minimum security people, and you just don't have to be a part of the community. You are going to find people that look like you, talk like you, with similar offenses. But as Stephen Covey said in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, seek first to understand before you try to make the system understand you. So we want that to happen so that you don't have complications, not only with interacting with other people serving time, but also with interacting with staff members, okay? Think about who they are, okay? And just kind of using your critical thinking skills right now. What is their goal? Who says, I am going to build a career as a correctional officer or in the prison system? What is the mindset of that person? Well, the mindset of that person is not necessarily to help you, okay? Like anybody else, they're thinking about their own career. And thinking about their own career means, how are they going to advance from a correctional officer to a lieutenant, to a captain, to an associate warden, to a warden? That trajectory is what really moves the needle for them. So this isn't to disparage anybody that works in prisons, but it's rather to help you understand the environment. And if you think that the staff members are there to help you, you might also be thinking that Santa Claus is going to come down your chimney on December 24th or the 25th. That's just not the way it works. So prisons are built in such a way that their main priority is to what's called protect the security of the institution. So if you remember that, you will know that a staff member gets promoted by protecting security of the institution. Doing what? Writing disciplinary infractions. So that's one of the reasons that next week's module or webinar is specifically on understanding the disciplinary code. Because although you may say, I'm not going to do anything wrong, and we believe that, you don't even know what's wrong. You won't even know what is wrong. What are they going to be looking for? How can I potentially inadvertently violate rules? And so we have a whole webinar on that next week. And we really think you should be learning about that. If you're going in and you won't be available, then watch one of our previous webinars on that very subject, because you're going to learn a lot from listening. It's going to open your mind and give you that level of critical thinking skills, just as you used when you were building your career in other areas. So regardless of what stage in the journey you're in, we really want you to make good decisions going forward. And that requires you to not only think about your own complications in your life, but also think about the complications that your family is going through. The stakeholders are going to be looking at when they are assessing, is this person a worthy candidate for a program that can advance his or her release date? Is this person a worthy candidate for a higher level of liberty at an earlier time? So the more you understand about that, the better off you're going to be. And we won't be there with you at that point. So this is the time to be doing your research, as we're showing you here, on all of these different areas that we have available on the website. Subject matter experts. We also have this tab up here where it said, hey, here's information that you need to know, and you should be educating yourself so that you can work more effectively with your family, with your attorney, with your own plan. This is all stuff that will help you before sentencing. And I really encourage you, if you're at that stage in the journey, read that information now so that you could come armed to our webinars with better questions. If you're after sentencing, there's a whole series of free information here for you to look through and learn so that you could more effectively work with your family, with your advocacy group. If your attorney is going to be with you, with your attorney, The more you understand about all of these concepts, the more empowered you are going to be to ask us questions. If you are looking also at this section here on self-advocacy, because remember, your attorney will very likely carry you through sentencing, but after that experience, who's going to be there to help you? You know, the Bureau of Prisons won't deal with your attorney. They won't deal with us. You've got to deal with yourself. We've got to become a source of support for you and your family all the way through this, but we have to show you, here's how you help yourself. So we will have all types of information here that will help you understand, okay, what is my process for handling things like this administrative remedy? What does it look like? What does the program statement say? So there's all these resources for you. If you don't know what they are, you can't effectively help yourself. You won't know what questions to ask us. So what we are here to do for you is to help you through this really difficult time, and also help you while you're in there, if you're a member of our community. But we need you to know you have to understand the system so you don't hurt yourself, so that you don't do something that's going to make your time more difficult. And that's why I recommend that you really invest time, just like you invested in your career, invest time to get to know the system. Don't wait until you get in there to try and figure things out, like, how does this system work? Well, that's why I recommend that you go to this website right here, bop.gov, and you take a look at, like, there's a lot of information here. There's all these policies and forms that will be very helpful if you have an understanding, how does the Code of Federal Regulations work, and how is that going to influence my life? Who are the stakeholders here that have decision-making power? How do I pull the levers in this system to work in my favor? Then there is institution-specific information. So like if I'm going to Ashland FCI, I want to click on here and learn a little bit about Ashland FCI, scroll down to the bottom of every one of these pages and say, let me look at the Admissions and Orientation Handbook. Okay, what are the local rules of this institution? You're going to find so many things in there that are so complicated for you. Say, I don't understand any of this. Guess what? You've just taken it in a very effective action step of educating yourself and realizing there's a lot that I don't know. And that's when you should be coming back to us on our next week's webinar and saying, hey, I read this. What does it mean? Because there's not going to be anything on there that I don't know what it means, and that I can't get other people to help us, just like we're getting to work with John. But it's, remember, it doesn't end ever. Once you are a justice impacted person, there are collateral consequences that follow you long after the judge sentences you to the custody of the Attorney General. There are prison reform legislation that you have to advocate for yourself on. There are programs that can benefit you, but you have to learn how to advocate for yourself. There is understanding, how are the staff members going to interpret my release date? If you don't know the law and what Congress intended, you're going to get rolled over. And we don't want that to happen. We want to be able to say, hey, we can help you do this. Hey, here's the policy we want you to cite in this administrative remedy. Hey, here's how you do that. And how do we do that in an ongoing basis? Well, it's once you surrender to prison and you're not able to get on our webinars anymore, that's when you are going to be benefiting from these newsletters and workbooks and communications that we send to your family, and we also send to you while you're in prison. So please take the time now to be looking through all of these resources that we provide so that you can become more qualified to advocate for yourself. And one of the areas that is super, super important that defense attorneys may not know about, that you may not know about, is this section right here that concerns healthcare. Healthcare is a real challenge, I think, anywhere, but in the Bureau of Prisons, It's even more complicated because you have this BOP formulary. And Carol, I'm going to share my screen right now. Could you help us understand just by coming over here and giving us a quick summary of the formulary? And I'm going to ask my wife to kind of take over. My wife is an acute care nurse, and she's very familiar with the process of advocating for yourself with regard to the formulary and what you have to do. So I am going to ask her to come over here and kind of explain that. While she's doing that, I'm going to pull them up on the screen right here so that I'm sharing the screen with you. And there are these two different areas, but I got to go back to that one. I want to go this one on the formulary. So Carol, here is the first formula. I'm going to bring the microphone over there, and you can just kind of speak on it, on what this means.
Good morning.
And I'll be scrolling down the screen while Carol's talking.
The formulary is really a explanation of the medications that the Bureau of Prisons has in their stock that they administer to people in prison. It's fairly comprehensive. However, most of the medications are going to be generic formula versus brand, and that's strictly a cost savings. It also lists administration instructions and the BOP's policies for administering certain medications, including how you can get it, when you can get it, and why you can get it and why you cannot get it. So the information in these documents is really, really important to share with your physician before you go in, because if you are on certain medications for chronic conditions, it's very, very important that you know ahead of time what the BOP has available to give you. And if you're on certain medications that they do not administer, you want to work with your physician ahead of time to either wean you off those drugs or look at the formulary and come up with a substitution plan that does include medications the BOP has available.
Let me just interject one thing there, and I think I can show you. This is the formulary that she's talking about. This is really complicated stuff, but if you understand this, or you have some basic understanding here, you could tee up your defense attorney and get subject matter experts that your defense attorney could submit an affidavit or something about. And this can be very helpful in advocating, hey, where do you want to go? So Carol, I just wanted to throw that out. This is all in preparation for the journey ahead. If it's beyond the sentencing date and the statement of reasons and the JNC's, the judgment order's already been issued, then you still have to be working to make sure you're ready. Of course, we've hired subject matter experts that were active in setting these policies, but you have to listen to what they say so that you, when you're in prison, you could advocate for yourself. Go ahead, Carol.
So really your best preparation, again, is to front load this by working with your personal physician and creating a very strong plan. If there are specific medications that you must have that are not on this formulary, one of the subject matter experts did say that the BOP will occasionally approve non-formulary medications, but it is a process. So you're going to need very clear documentation from your physician about why that's important. Additionally, in the formulary PDF number 1, it lists information.
This is 1, right? I'm showing you now. Okay.
I believe it's page 5 or 6. There is a policy statement that's very important that everyone should know. It's about continuity of care. The BOP makes a statement that continuity of care is something that they take seriously. Therefore, you want to be ready to discuss this if you're having difficulty getting a medication that you need to take every day, and you report and they will not allow you to bring in a special medication. It's very important that you arm yourself with this knowledge so that when issues come up with medication or medical treatment, you already know what the policies are, and you can quote those policies or show them this document and hold them accountable to that. Medical problems in prison can be extremely problematic if you have chronic conditions. So this information for you is extremely important, and I strongly encourage you to review it carefully with your personal physician.
So I want people to understand this only because if you have this understanding, there are steps you can take before you surrender that's just much easier. For example, we had one person that needed that had shoe issue. What was that?
Diabetic neuropathy.
Diabetic neuropathy. I'm not a healthcare professional. So that would be a special shoe. If you can get the prescription for that before you surrender and you surrender with it, that's going to save you enormous pain and conflict once you get in there. The more you can do,
And all of that's listed in that.
and all of that's listed in the policy, but we don't know this information about you. We don't have everybody's information. What we are mitigation strategists. Mitigation, what does that mean? It means something different at different stages, right? And every stage you need to engineer your mitigation strategy before you get charged, before you get sentenced, while you're inside, when you're on supervised release. There are many stages here, but it's really understanding we want to empower you to help yourself. If you don't know this information, you don't even know where to look or what to ask. How do I help myself? And I can tell you, yes, it's all on our website for free. Spend your time there. But if you don't do it, I know that I think everybody on this webinar is somebody that's retained our team or the sponsors that sponsor our nonprofit. Those guys can help you, but they cannot help you if you don't know what question to ask. So please pay attention to this information so that you can be in a better position to help yourself. And there are just so many areas, and of course you can email Carol. She is an acute care nurse with a master's degree and understands public health. And even if she's going to be helpful to you later in filing documentation that you may be able to try and argue for whatever, under the First Step Act, or if the CARES Act is still in existence, the CARES Act, or anything you're trying to do, we want you to give us the information that can go into that self-advocacy package that will help you the best way possible. And there are many moving parts in building that strategy. So you want to be understanding that. You want to develop your understanding of that as early as you can. You want to understand the importance of understanding the environment that you're in. You want to prepare yourself well to surrender with confidence that you said, okay, I'm not going to let this system derail my sense of confidence and peace. I'm going to go in there and I know what's coming, and that, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. The more I know, the more I can advocate for myself, the more effectively I can calm the fears and the anxiety of your family members. So what's some of the additional information that we think you need to know before you surrender? You want to look through our website and find out, what is the telephone policy in prison? What can I say over the phone that is not going to raise me get a shining light on who I am and what I am doing? How do I prepare myself to use the phone effectively in prison? How do I prepare myself to use email effectively in prison? Well, some people don't even know what that means to use email in prison, because email in prison is fundamentally different than email out here in the community. For that reason, we filmed a video, and you can click it just by going to this slide. You'll see a link there that'll take you to the video that shows you what does the prison email system look like, explains it, and it will teach. You could then use it to teach your family and your loved ones, hey, this is how I'm going to communicate with you when I get out. Same thing with the regular mail. I want you to watch the video so that the people who are writing you letters understand, how do I get you letters that are not going to get rejected and thrown in the garbage or sent back home? Because there's a whole different way of getting mail in prison that exists out here. Visiting. you're going to want to see what the visiting list looks like and learn a little bit about it. And so we have these links to help you learn. And if you have questions, ask us questions on that. That's what these webinars are really for this interactive experience. And then it's understanding, well, what's going to happen to me once I get in there, right? Well, we can tell you it's going to be, it's prison, okay? It's not, I'm not going to, you'll hear rumors of Club Fed and this and that. It's traumatic to be separated from the people you love and to have an unknown person say, put your hands behind your back and put handcuffs and walk you into a prison. It's traumatic, but it's temporary. And the more you know, hey, I'm going to get through this because I know what's going to happen. What's going to happen? Well, it's pretty simple. They're going to put you in a holding cell, okay? They're going to, they may or may not handcuff you. They're going to give you a lot of paperwork to fill out. And the things that you fill out in that paperwork is going to have implications. It can have implications on what job you get. It can have implications on whether you get to wear soft shoes like tennis shoes, or you get a job that you don't have to stand. It can have implications on what programs you qualify and how quickly. So learn about this process and say, hey, I know exactly what's going to happen when I get in there. Okay. And we've got an abundance of information on the site that explains that. There's going to be a strip search. Okay. It's indignified. Okay. They're going to ask you to strip naked and they're going to look at your body. You're going to make it through and you're going to come home and it's going to be okay, because it happens every day. But there are some people that kind of flip out during that process and they create things that make it more difficult for them inside. Remember, every decision you make has an opportunity cost that comes with it. So think always, I've got to be a submarine here. I'm just going to do what I'm said because my job is to get out of here as soon as I possibly can, to qualify for every program that I possibly can, and to have the least, obstructive experiences possible. And so if you're a woman, we've got some kind of information that we always want to pass along. If you're female and going into prison, we encourage you, because we've heard from some of our female clients who said, if you surrender with white, what is it? White cotton, you said? White cotton underwear without underwire, then there's a chance that they'll allow you to bring it with you. Don't bring a whole slack of it, just what you're wearing. But apparently that makes a big difference. So, think about that. Think about, if you need special shoes, genuinely you need them, and you could document it with medical reasons, get that taken care of before you surrender. Okay. Identification, bring your ID with you. Even if it's a photographic copy of your driver's license, your vaccination card, right? The prison system's not going to penalize you if you're not a vaccinated person, they're not going to penalize you for that. But if you have it, bring a copy with you to make things faster, to make things easier. We have this list here that's called our top 10 checklist that we encourage you to work your way through. And, this is all information for you to study, so that on our future webinars, you really come prepared to ask questions. The one thing I always want to emphasize is that we are never going to ask you to do anything that we didn't do. We're never going to suggest something that we can't back up with. There's a reason behind it. But if you don't understand the reason, please ask us. There's just so much to go over here that it would be ridiculous for me to say, I'm going to tell you everything I learned in 26 years of prison on one webinar, even on a series of 10 webinars. But that's why we write books. We have more than 1,000 videos, 1,000 podcasts, articles. We've got all kinds of information. And you should take this need to prepare as seriously as you took the need to prepare for your career before you went on to become successful in whatever it is you built your life around. So I do not see anybody raising their hand for a question. So I don't know if Justin, could you tell me if you've responded to all the chat questions Or are there things in there that I need to respond to? Because I'm going to turn to the calculator, introduce Brian.
I don't know if I've responded to them all. I will while you're going through
Yeah,
the calculator.
please take this seriously. We put a lot of attention, I think, and we want to earn your trust. And I don't want you to ask a question and think you're not responding to the
Michael mentioned our tips to surrendering to prison. I just put that link there from the prison professor site for everyone.
It's in the PowerPoint. All those PowerPoints, they have links as well.
Okay.
So please go through the chat, because I want to take some time to introduce Brian, who is the newest member of our team. One of the things that we do at the nonprofit is we hire formerly incarcerated people to the extent that we're able, and we have the resources to do it, because we're really committed to helping people get the best experience. And we've been investing a lot of resources to build this new tool that I'm going to share on my screen. Or Brian, are you able to share on your screen, or is it better for me to share? Brian,
it might be best. It might be best for you to share.
Okay, so Brian has experience. Why don't you tell him about your experience while I'm getting this calculator that we're building teed up for us?
Sure. So my process started in January 2018 when I first became aware that I was going to be part of the system. And my case, due to COVID, my case kept getting pushed back. And then finally, I was sentenced in August of 2021. I served 12 months, most of those at a camp. There was some transit involved, but most of the time was at a camp, and I was released on September 8th. So I've been out now for about 16 days. And I actually took about 6 or 7 days off to kind of enjoy freedom for a bit. And now I'm ready to just get back at it and resume as much of a normal life as I can at this point.
And so we are very fortunate, because we really are lucky that we've got super talented people on our team that have both experience of going all the way through the journey and also bring real life experience. I mean, Sam was a CEO of an insurance company. Lawrence graduated from Columbia Law School and was a securities lawyer, who you probably interacted with him. And Justin is a former financial services professional. I do what I do, but Brian brings a unique skill set in that he comes from the finance sector as well, and has the advantage of being an Excel wizard. So we've been building this very complicated spreadsheet to take into account many different variables that we want you to use so that you could start projecting, when's my release date? And Brian, what I'm going to do first, let's just go through these variables. If you see the green, these are inputs. So that means you just have to insert an input here, whatever it's going to be. Okay. And here, why don't you explain what this means, Brian?
All right. So right here in column B, you'll see where you enter in your sentence in months.
So that's it. But some people have 12 months in a day. So if that's the case, we've got a special formula there of 12.0329. Okay. But this is your input. And we're just showing you, we're going to build this on the website because we want your family to be able to use this regularly. And there's a reason for that, as I'll explain as we get through this, because this is going to change a lot. But the first thing you do is you say, okay, this guy's got a 72-month sentence. What's column C?
Right. So that's the date that you have to self-surrender. So some of you, it might be a month from now. Some of you don't even have that date yet. But once you get that date, you can enter that date in.
And the nice thing about that is if we have that date, we can actually project what date you're going to start getting out, but more to come on that. You also have this section here. What is that?
So that is any credit you've received for already serving time. And as Michael has said in the past, if you go to the marshal's office to get fingerprinted and processed and you spend 2 hours there, that counts as a day. I didn't know that. When I got to my location, my computation sheet was off by a day and I couldn't figure out why. And that's the answer to it. So you get credit for that one day. And some of you may have served, a week or two in holding, or now I served with one guy who, during his pretrial release, he was arrested for a DUI that violated his terms of his pretrial. He served 10 days and they gave him credit for those 10 days towards his federal sentence. Now, I don't know if that's going to apply to everyone, but because
let me address that a bit, because this is important for your qualification for things like the earned time credit. You can't get that when you're in pre-trial. Okay, there are a lot of people that had a couple of court appearances, and all that counts as a day. So that's important, because every day away from your family is important. But there are some people that spend several weeks. I was in pre-trial for a year before I got sentenced, and I could not get any credit for that year. Okay, so other than the time served, that's why column D appears over here. Okay, on this side, and I'll explain that as we get to projected release dates. Right. This column E, you see they're all blank, but that comes from directly the BOP.gov website. So when the BOP is doing their projections, we want to plug that in, because that's going to change over time based on certain factors as you serve your sentence. But we need a starting point, and we need to compare this with different regions in the country. What's going on? This all becomes very helpful in your self-advocacy pursuits. Then we get to column F. What is column F, Brian?
So that projects your release time based upon your original sentence length and your prior jail credits. So that's it. And that's no good time. That's worst case scenario. That is if you're in the hole, if you spend every day in the hole.
Yeah, the only way you can get worse than that is if you commit another crime and a judge sentences you to more time.
Right.
But if the judge sentenced you to 72 months and you have 1 day of jail credit, you're getting out and you surrender on October the 10th, 2022, you're getting out on the 28th for this particular projected release date. If you change that to 25 days, you're going to see that date change. Okay, that's simple. If you're in jail for 45 days, that date's going to change. So we're going to just leave it as 1. Then we're going to go over here, and that's why we call this projected release date 0. That's your full term date. What's column G?
I see we have a hand up from Jonathan, so I don't know if you want to address that.
Let's go through the.
We can wait. I can wait till the end.
Yeah. So what's column G?
So that is your good time. The current rule is 15% if you get 12 months or longer. Now, that is credited. You are assumed to receive that the day you enter BOP custody. So that will be included on your computation sheet from the start.
And that's very important for other reasons, because the BOP now has a rule that says when you are within 18 months of your projected release date, your prison term becomes final. Okay, your release date to the BOP becomes final. Any additional credits you get will apply to other factors, which makes this sheet very complicated and really affects the formulas we're using. So we got to have a lot of projections in here and a lot of data for us to be able to start really helping you later. What's column H?
Right. So column H is your release date based upon your original sentence, less your prior jail time credit, less your statutory good time.
So you could see this person earned 10 months, 10.8 months. This is a reflection of that. Before they were getting out October 18th, 28, now it's the 27th. That's your projected release date. That's not the day you go to a halfway house, but this is very valuable information because I can use that to project what else can I do? When's the earliest I can get out given this data point? Go to number I. What do we have there?
Can you just move it over just a little bit?
Let me move the spreadsheet over, and we're on column I. Right
there
here.
You go. So column I is the remaining.
Oops, sorry about that. How can I do this? Is that too big or is that okay?
That's fine for me. I don't know how everyone else feels about it, but
Okay, that's odd.
right. So that's the months remaining on your sentence after we calculate your good time and your any prior jail credit. So you went from 72 months to 61.17 months without even doing anything other than the assumption that you won't get into trouble during your term.
And is that from today's date, Brian? Didn't we calculate that as from, so this will change because it's from today's date, correct?
No, well, that's from the sentence start date.
Okay, so that means that you have 61 months effectively to serve before you get earned time credits and also before RDAP is considered here. That's really important for the next column, J. And what is J?
So J is just, it's actually a formula to check if you have more than 18 months remaining. Because if you have more than 18 months remaining, that is those months are opportunities for you to earn first step back time credits towards your time in prison. Now, even beyond, or if you have less than 18 months, you can still earn those time credits. They just won't be credited during your stay at the prison.
And then we've got this date here. When do I move to within 18 months? That would be this date in L, correct?
Correct.
And that's important for you to understand because I said, well, if I get to within 18 months, I only have 44 months left until I get to within 18 months when my date becomes final. If that's the story, that means I can only earn time credits during this window of 44 months. So that we are recording as projected release date number 1, right? That's what it says there, PRD1.
Correct.
So you'll have that as a basis that you could use to start, okay, let me start projecting. What do I need to do? How do I advocate for myself in such a way that I get the maximum amount of credit? That takes us over here. What is this one, Jonathan? Brian.
So that is if you're going to participate in RDAP. That's either going to be a yes or a no question.
And if it's a yes or a no, it automatically will conclude a couple of things here. Number one, depending on your sentence length, you get so much time off, okay? So this will automatically compute that sentence length. Whatever your sentence length is, it's going to take your potential RDAP start date based on a formula that we've used. And it's also going to tell you how much potential time you can get off, right?
Right. Now that start date is based upon an assumption that if you have a sentence of less than 48 months, you're going to be enrolled in RDAP within your first 2 months of entering the system. Now, if you have more than 48 months, you cannot enter RDAP until you hit that 48-month mark.
And again, that's an assumption that we're making today in version 1 of our calculator.
Right.
Once we start processing this and we start seeing what's going on in all 6 regions of the Bureau of Prisons, we're going to get a better data set. We're going to know what's happening in minimum security prisons versus low security prisons. We're going to know what's happening in the Western region of California versus the Eastern region of New York. Okay. So all of this is important for us so that we can help you predict better, which is why this is an evolving process. But if we take RDAP, that takes us here to column R. What is column R, Brian?
So that becomes your release date after RDAP, good time, and your jail credits. So someone who has a 72-month sentence that starts prison on October 20th, 2022, that participates in RDAP will have a new release date of, if you go over to where that column was.
It's right here, isn't it? Isn't it November?
Right. Right. So basically, they went from a 6-month sentence basically to a 4.
What's that? They went from what to what?
Or from a 6-year sentence to a 4.
Right.
Sorry. Yep.
Yeah. And so then you've got this information. Well, how many months do I have remaining? Again, very important because you could start projecting this other really complicated factor, which is the earned time credits. Okay.
Right.
And this, again, we want to know now, okay, well, when am I going to be 18 months away from this date? And then I've got that. That tells me how many months I could be earning potentially earned time credits. And that also gives us information on, well, you can tell them what these are.
So that is your RRC months eligible under the Second Chance Act, which is residential recovery centers. And the maximum that you can get is 12 months. However, not everyone receives 12 months. So we have a separate projected. Now, all these say 12 right now, but if you scroll down a little to some further rows, you'll see some less months because it does depend on your length of sentence.
And it depends on the region and the warden, right? So it's important for us. That's one of the reasons that we have to hire subject matter experts. So we could say, well, what would you advise your case manager to give if a person has an 8-month sentence? How much halfway else will you give him? What if he has a 24-month sentence? What if he has a 32-month sentence? This is very important because of the way this 18-month rule works. There are so many complications here, which is why you kind of need to have a full tutorial just on how am I going to understand this. And we're developing it. We're continuing to develop it with hopes of helping you so that you're going to know, how do I get through this? This home confinement eligibility date, tell them what that means, Brian.
So that's basically that's 6 months that everyone's eligible for currently under, I believe it's under, is that under the Second Chance Act right now? Or is that
the Second Chance Act, 6 months only if your sentence is 60 months or longer.
right?
If it's less than 60 months, it's 10% of your sentence. So like here, this guy on row 2, Jim, he had a 51-month sentence. So the maximum home confinement he can get under the Second Chance Act is 5.1. Okay.
Right.
So we want to provide that information because all of that is relevant based on this information, which is the earned time credits, and explain to them. And just so you know, earned time credits and federal time credits are used synonymously. So that's, you'll sometimes see it as FTC, you'll sometimes see it as ETC. But what do these mean, Brian?
So column AB there in the green is how many months you think you're going to earn at a low pattern score. How many months are you going to earn time credits for at a low pattern score? Now, at a low pattern score, you earn 10 days per month under the current legislation.
Now, we have a full webinar on earned time credits and things of that sort, but that's going to appear much later. We're just kind of trying to open your eyes to the complexity of all of this. So the earned time credits, this one is 3. If you change it, oh, I'm going to do 2, you'll notice that date change, the output changes in yellow. So on the spreadsheet, the greens are inputs, the yellows are outputs, and the turquoise color are projected release dates. So the AD, what is AD? Column AD?
So AD, then if you start at a low and then you move to a minimum, so let's say when you get to prison, you're actually a low, you might have to do 6 months as a low, where you're only earning 10 days a month. But then after you have a couple team meetings, you're eligible to get moved to a minimum, should you meet certain requirements. So then if you got a long sentence, you might only do, like I said, like 6 months at a low, but then you can do the remainder at a minimum, which you earn at a higher rate.
And again, all the more reason to understand, how do you advocate for yourself along this process? So these yellow outputs then just kind of combine your total potential of earned time credits at a low and a minimum, and then we apply that to your custody. What does this mean here, column AG?
Column AG is how many of those days that you earn are we going to apply to your custody? So you can earn a potential of 210 days under this original sentence length and what we input for what he's going to earn. And I believe if you go back to what you entered in, I think there was 30 for, okay, so there was 12 for one, and then how much was for the other one? 3. So in 15 months, you would earn 210 days under
So,
those assumptions.
I want to correct one thing you said, because it's how many you would be eligible to earn. Remember that the potential days of credit, you can get the first 365 days comes off of your sentence. Okay,
Right.
just like RDAP does. After that, you end up with this thing called a carryover or a remainder of days. So like, for example, if we had this person here under minimum pattern score, let's just say 25, and now he's got 375 days, you're going to see this change to 40, okay? Because it's carried over. Is that right? Yeah. No, that should only be 10, shouldn't it, Brian?
No, see, well, yeah, so the
Oh,
days
no, here it is,
reduction with the,
potential days, 405. So that's the 40 extra.
Right.
Okay. Why is that important? That
That's
becomes important. Go ahead and tell them why.
yeah, because on your custody in prison, you can only get your sentence reduced by 365 days under the current legislation. But the other 40 days will be applied down the road to supervised release.
Or transition to an RRC. Okay. So what that means is, what we have to understand about that is, this is why we have to find out, okay, what is a warden in a specific region recommending generally for RRC placement? If you've got a 24-month sentence, he may say, my policy is I for that range, I give 3 months. Okay. But if you've earned more good time credits, either that can come off, the first part comes off of a sentence reduction, anything that's a remainder, it gets applied to your, you override the Second Chance Act, and you can go home to spend a portion on home confinement. This is very complicated. It's really even more complicated if you have a longer sentence. If you have a shorter sentence, most of your, and I say a shorter sentence, let's put that in perspective. I mean, I know if you're going to jail for 2 days, that's, incredible. You can't even fathom it. But in the Bureau of Prisons, somebody with 10 years is considered a short-term offender. So understand that and figure out, excuse me, I'm going to cough. Understand that so that you can understand, okay, how do I pull the right levers to get the maximum benefit? If your sentence is like probably under 4 years or less, you're already going to get everything. But if your sentence is more than 4, there can be more complications, and we want you to understand, how do you use this to your advantage? So this calculator is really important. It is an ongoing exercise. If you're part of our community, that's one of the things that Brian's going to be involved in. Right? When you're in prison, you're still going to be able to communicate with us. We want you to kind of have this understanding of saying, hey, we're going to be continuing to monitor this for you, looking at what's going on the BOP's website, looking what programs you're doing. If you have questions for us, we'll be able to help you with those questions based on that. Now, I know there were some, Sam, I'm going to ask Sam first because he's on our team. And Sam, are you still on the call? Because I saw you had your hand up before.
Sam hopped off for a scheduled call that he had.
Okay, so I saw he had a question. I'm sorry, I missed it then. Let's go to Jonathan, who has his hand raised.
All right, thank you for calling on me. 2 quick questions. First, does everyone who goes to a camp start as a low pattern score and you have to earn the minimum pattern score, like the 2 visits, the 2 team meetings later? Or can you start as a minimum right out of the gate?
Jonathan, we're going to need your help in that when you get there. I'm going to tell you that the First Step Act does not require you to start. You could start as a minimum. That's what it says. But remember, Congress publishes one thing and the BOP may do something else. And what happens in Miami may be different than happens in Lompoc, California. Let me ask Brian, what happened in your institution? Did you get minimum as soon as you surrendered, or did it take you 2 team meetings or something like that?
I received, I was minimum. I had a team meeting that I did not know was a team meeting. And that's, I think, a subject for another day, but I was classified as a minimum. Now, I only received 8 First Step Act credits during my stay. I have earned well over 120 that I am going to be working towards getting those applied to my current situation.
So that's an important data point. If you know what you're supposed to get, you're in a better position to advocate for yourself. And
Okay,
I'm gonna
so follow up to that. So if you go in and they keep you a low for these 2 team meetings until you have these 2 team meetings, which I'm guessing for me would be 1 year in, would be my second one. Once I'm classified as a minimum, do I get the extra 5 days a month retroactive to the first day I was there, or only from that point on?
You could file an administrative remedy if they've misclassified you, but remember, these are objective scores. So if you go onto our website, we have a section where you could just plug in your categories. These are objective scores. And if you're a minimum, you're a minimum, and you should be arguing for that. You're going to find that out, and you're going to let us know once you get there what you got classified as. And then we're going to tell you, here's the way that we would respond to that if it's wrong.
Okay.
But we
Gotcha.
think that you should get minimum. The problem everybody needs to remember is the First Step Act is the biggest piece of criminal justice reform legislation in 50 years, and the Bureau of Prisons is still rolling it out. So there's going to be a lot of advocacy efforts, a lot of scrutiny, and a lot of litigation. And it could take a long time to resolve. But I don't expect it's going to look the same a year from now that it looks today. That's why we have to be very vigilant in trying to get the information that will help you.
Okay. And then my last question would be, when we're creating this release plan on page 1, where it says projected release dates or something, should we be putting these PRD dates on this release plan?
We're giving you that to help you understand it. No, I think that you could plug what you would plug in there is, what is the Bureau using? Okay, because that's what's important. So in the beginning, when you first surrender, ideally, here's the ideal situation in my view, and we'll cover this in later webinars. When you go to your team meeting, you make a very simple little presentation that just says, I did a lot of research before I came in, and I understand the importance of a release plan. I wanted to show you what I've done so far. Here is my release plan today. I continue, as you'll see, I've got a plan to continue working, and I will present you with a new release plan every time we meet to show you what I've done. They will appreciate that.
Okay, so on that page 1, we don't put, the date we're expecting to go to halfway house, or the date, we get our.
I would iterate that. I would keep that kind of stuff to be going as you go along. So the first time I would leave that blank and say, I'm looking to do the best that I can. And the second time I would probably insert that. And we'll have a lot more information in 6 months than we have today, because this program will be more rolled out.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you always, Jonathan. And next we have Mike. I see your hand up. Let us respond to you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I do. Is this Mike that had his hand raised, or is this somebody else? It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I had my hand raised.
Okay. Yeah, please respond. Please ask.
Okay, my question is, I was recently sentenced to 2 sentences that run consecutively.
Okay. What are those sentences?
60 months and 36.
Would you repeat that? I'm sorry, I interrupted and I missed it.
60 months and 36.
Okay. So the Bureau of Prisons, what they're going to do, and may I ask your first name?
It's Mike.
Hi, Mike. Okay, so I'm Mike. I'm Michael. I had a sentence like that. So that's called it's going to be an aggregated sentence when you get into the Bureau of Prisons. They're going to aggregate it as if you have one sentence. Did you say it's 96 months total?
96 total.
Okay, so they're going to aggregate that sentence. You're going to have 96 months. All of your programming is going to be based on that 96 months. So our job, right, as an advocacy group for you is going to be to say, okay, what can I do at what stage? You're not going to have to worry about that 18-month rule. that somebody's going to have to worry about if they have a 36-month sentence, because there's a lot of things that you can do, right? That's what the First Step Act did. It gave you the ability to try and influence what's happening later. There are opportunities for you to influence the administrative team in the Bureau of Prisons. There's also an opportunity, a mechanism for you to potentially build a case to show why you're worthy of compassionate release. That's one of the openings that the First Step Act gave for you. That didn't exist when I was in prison. This is a huge thing, and it would behoove you to go to the website, read the First Step Act, look at some of the information of people that had very long sentences like 96 months, and say, what did they do to persuade a judge to grant them compassionate release? Because you're going to have to build something that's called an extraordinary and compelling record. And in fact, I did something on my screen. Let me see if I can share it with you, because I always tell people, don't take my word for things. Always do your own research and learn more, and then come back ready to ask better questions. So I want to share my screen here again, and Chrome right here, share. And let me see if I have this, because I was looking at this earlier today. I wanted to write something about it. Is this it? No, that's not it. Hold on a second there. I'm going to find it. I want to find, is this it? No, that's not it. Oh, right here. This is the U.S. Sentencing Commission's report on compassionate release. Okay. This is a huge deal for you, Mike. Okay. You need to read this kind of information, and I'm going to just drop this in the chat. Okay. I'm going to create commentary on it as well, but let me go to the chat and drop it into the chat as well. Chat right here. Here's the link. And I want to make this go to everybody, everyone in meeting. Here's the link. Anybody with a long sentence would really be wise to read this report. This is a new report that talks about compassionate release. So I'm just going to tell you what it means. Prior to the First Step Act, when a judge sentenced you, the judge lost jurisdiction over you. There's no way the judge could go back and look at your sentence and say, I want to give you a lower sentence. I want to revisit this. Okay. But with the First Step Act, the Congress gave judges jurisdiction to reassess, is prison still the best course of action for you? This is not something for you to do next week. It's not something for you to do next month. It's something for you to be thinking about. What kind of business are you in, Mike?
Construction.
So I don't know what that means, construction, what size of construction, but here's what I know. Anybody that starts a business, you should be looking a year, 5 years out. What's going to be different? That's what you have to do right now. Okay, I got a 96-month sentence. I have the ability to potentially go back to my judge and ask for compassionate release. But you better build something that makes it worthy. So look at these people, because this didn't exist for me, but we feature many people on our website or on our YouTube channel that started out with really long sentences, and they persuaded a judge to revisit it and send them home. This is very different from the CARES Act. This is part of the First Step Act. The CARES Act can be gone next month or in 2 months or in 6 months. We don't know. But the First Step Act is a law that would require an act of Congress to change. So it works in your favor to understand compassionate release, and then to build a record that could potentially make you a more attractive candidate for compassionate release.
Let me ask you one more question. So if my consecutive sentences are aggregated, is there anything different because they're quote unquote aggregated, how things apply as far as earned time credits, as far as anything because it's an aggregate versus,
No, that works in your favor. No, you'll be an aggregated sentence, and they're going to look at what's called your computation date, and your computation date is going to be based on 96 months. So that works in your favor, because let's say that you had a 36-month sentence, and they would project a release date after you get close to within 18 months of your surrender date or your release date. They stop project, you can't earn any more earn time credits. So you're going to have the ability to earn 12 months off for earn time credits. And I don't know if you're qualifying for RDAP, but potentially 12 months off for that as well, plus statutory good time. It's all going to come relatively easy to you because your sentence is long enough to make it matter, right? If you had less than 5 years, you could have some complications based on when you enrolled in RDAP, when you got earn time credits. All those complications that I had on the calculator, they're not going to really apply to you. You're going to get everything coming. In fact, we could use you as a test case if you want me to do it. Do you know when
yeah,
you're
if we
surrendering?
could.
Do you know
I surrender November 7th of this year.
Okay, so I'll just pull it up. Let me see if I could share my screen again. So we'll do it together. And let's see. Share screen down here. Okay, so here's the calculator, right? Your name is Mike. I'm going to put your name down here as Mike. 96-month sentence. Okay. Surrender what date?
November 7th.
07/22. Were you arrested ever?
I was not.
So but you have already like had your mugshot taken and fingerprints taken?
I take that back. I was arrested, yes, a day.
So you were arrested once, that's one thing. Did you plead guilty or go to trial?
Pled guilty.
So that means you went back again and they took your mugshot again and you pleaded guilty and all that stuff, right?
Yes.
So you have 2 days jail credit at least already. Did you get out right after you were arrested?
Immediately.
Okay, so you still have 2 days credit. Okay. So now we're going to go over here. I can't plug this in yet on column E because you haven't been in yet. So right now your full term date to come home would be November the 5th, 2030. Don't freak out over that because that's not going to happen. Okay. That's just the full term. It's always good to know what's the worst possible case. Then we're going to say how much statutory good time you get. When we consider that, now your date is August 23rd, 2029. Do you know if you participated in RDAP? Did
No.
you qualify for RDAP?
No.
Are you going to try?
I'm going to do everything I can.
Okay, so that's a big deal for you. I don't know if you can qualify or not. I mean, you should talk with our team, but if you can, that's a big deal. But let's say no, because you just said no. So then none of this matters, right? That doesn't matter. But if you said yes, you can see what'll happen. You'll get 12 months calculated off your sentence, but you said no. So I'm going to put no. I would encourage you to learn more about that program and see if you qualify. Program 2 is jail time credit plus statutory good time plus RDAP. Well, you don't have RDAP, so it's going to be a 0. But that's going to say you don't move to within 18 months of your release date until February of 28. So you can still earn a tremendous amount of earn time credits. So let's just disregard this right now because you're going to get maximum for all of that. Let's say that you are successful in, how many months was that, by the way? That was like 64, actually 81 months. So let's just say that you do 81 months. Let's say that you do, let's put 40 there. That's going to give you 600 days. Of those 600 days, you can see you're going to get a year off your sentence more. And you're going to have 235 carryover days. So you get the maximum amount of days for time reduction. You also will get then 235 that are called carryovers or remainder. So that'll let you come home sooner than you would have been able to under the Second Chance Act. So now we can see, well, what's your projected release date given all these things? Is now it's coming down to August 28th. That's your release date, but you would transition to a halfway house or residential reentry center probably close to 2 years before that. So that would be like 26, somewhere in 2026. If you get all this stuff, if you get RDAP, it's even faster. So what we're going to have to do, and your family will be able to do this with you, because we're building this. First thing we're doing is we're getting all of the program built, but then we'll have it on the website. That'll be a lot easier. You just put the inputs in and you can kind of see how your date changes and advances as you complete programs and things like that while you're in there.
I appreciate it, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah, I would really encourage you. I mean, I don't think you and I have ever spoken before. I don't know if you've been on webinars before, but I would really encourage you to spend a lot of time on the prison professor's website so that you could understand, okay, I got a 96-month sentence. Let me do everything I can to knock that down. And there's a lot of stuff there. And that's just going to help you ask better questions on our future webinars.
Thank you.
All right. I don't see any other questions. Justin, have you been diligent and respond to everybody on the chat, or is there anything I need to respond to?
I would like you to respond to the last question. Pattern risk assessment, ask history of violence. Does a prior conviction, 4th degree assault, class A misdemeanor count, 59 days in county jail?
How long ago was that? Can somebody respond, whoever asked that question?
Last month.
Oh, last month. It could very well count. Yeah, does a prior conviction for 4th degree assault. There is actually information on that. I'm going to show you where to find it. Let me go back to sharing my screen. It actually might be kind of a ways back on our website. So if you go to our website here, let's just see. I'm going to show you. You're asking kind of a technical question, and I would say you have to go back to this section here. Where you go? I'm going to have to go back a ways because this was still in development, and I need to put a better link, a newer link. Let me find it. I'm going to drop the link in the chat as soon as I find it. Here it is. So here is the pattern score information, okay, for males. I don't know if you're a man or a woman, doesn't say, but you'd click the one that's for a man or a woman, and then you would look more to where do you get information on does my offense qualify? There's going to be a whole series of lists here. This is what doesn't qualify. These are disqualifying offenses. So I'm going to drop that email into the chat for everybody. And I would ask, you're going to have to look through this and see, does my offense qualify? If your offense is not on there, then you qualify. But I can't answer that. That's going to require some statutory stuff, but that's a resource for you to go look at and get your answer to your question. But anything that's violent, I don't know if that's a felony or a misdemeanor. Could you tell me that?
It said misdemeanor.
Oh, misdemeanor? Misdemeanor may not count, but I would check. I would read through that thing closely, and I'd be preparing an advocacy response regardless. Oh, if it's not listed, you're okay, because that's a hard and fast rule, those things that are not listed. So good stuff. Was there, I think I missed another question. Let me go back here. Go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question.
Hey, Michael.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. My name's Robert, and I just asked the question about the misdemeanor.
Okay.
And so the prosecutor specifically gave me 59 days because my attorneys told him that it would keep me at just a class 1 it would only give me 1 point, and would keep me in that 0 to 1 category. But as I've done my research, it does not show that is a disqualifying event, and they've been very vague with me whenever I've asked my attorneys, as if they're really not too sure. But it does not show in any of the research that it's a disqualifying event for the First Steps Act. But as I was filling out the pattern score, I was just trying to figure out, in that question, it asked if you
Let's go
have.
through it right now. I'm going to share my screen because we
Okay.
built this calculator for anybody
Okay.
to use it. And I'll drop, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the link in the chat. So everybody should do this on their own. There it is, but I'm going to do it together with you.
Okay.
So I dropped the chat there. Let me just ask you the questions. What's your
Sure.
current age? Oh, wait a minute.
I'm
I'll share my screen. Let me
Yeah.
make sure I'm sharing my screen so everybody can see what I'm doing. So I dropped in the chat a link directly to our little pattern score test. What's your current age?
I'm 46.
So 41 to 50. You don't have a sex offense, do you?
No.
Okay. Violence. When Congress passed the First Act, legislation excluded, so yours is no, so it's not on there.
It's not on there.
Okay. Criminal history points. First of all, what your lawyer said to you about those points, that's fundamentally different from the pattern score. He's talking about the federal sentencing guidelines. Okay?
Yeah.
That's different.
And so,
from this.
yeah,
let's go
so
through this. To answer this question, do you have any criminal history points?
I
think no.
I was told it would be a 1, but
that's
because
0
of
to
that
1.
conviction, yes.
Let's do that. You never escaped before then.
No.
No violence.
No.
Education.
No.
Do you have a high school diploma or better?
I have a doctor of pharmacy degree. So the question 6 was actually the one that I kept getting hung up on, because it asked documented history of violence. I didn't know if they would consider that, even though it's not a disqualifying offense for First Steps Act. I didn't know if
I
that
think as a
pattern risk assessment.
misdemeanor, you're okay on this.
Okay.
That's going to be my assessment.
Okay.
But I would check.
It makes a big difference.
Well, let
as
me
far
tell you
as
what I'm
this
going to
score.
do. We have this, as I've shown you before, we have these subject matter experts on our team. Why don't I ask a former warden, and I'll let you know what I hear on the next week's webinar.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that's the value of what we can do, is we could send, you could go over here to this section, and I'm not gonna give you what I don't know, because what I do is irrelevant. Let me ask the former director of the Bureau of Prisons. That might be below his pay grade, but he will probably direct me to this guy who's very active in that, or this guy, a former warden. And that's what I'll do. I'll just ask them. That's what we use the money for the people that pay to be on this program. We use that money to hire all these people so that we could get that kind of information. So come back next week and I'll let you know what I heard.
I'll be here. I would have loved to hire you guys. I talked to Sam briefly, but I just don't have the money. They've taken everything that I've got for restitution, and I can't afford it.
Well, that's why I do what I do. I run the nonprofit and give everything away for free. But these webinars is the time to ask me those questions, okay?
I appreciate it very much.
All right, who is next? Is there another question before we head out and enjoy the weekend? Hello?
Hey, Michael, this is
Colleen. How are
Glenn.
you
Can you hear
guys?
me?
Uh-oh, we got 2 people, one at a time.
That's okay. I'll wait. Go ahead, Glenn.
No,
Okay.
ladies first. Go ahead, ladies first. Go ahead.
There's a
Mine is
Southern
quick.
gentleman. Okay.
I wanted to get your sense. I know it really is. A quick question with regards to the CARES Act. Do you all see that people are still getting out on CARES? I know that CARES is unknown and it's an executive order and it could be taken away any day, as you repeatedly
You're
indicate,
using all
so
the
we
disclaimers,
don't have
aren't
to get
you?
our hopes up.
You're using all the disclaimers.
I am.
You're right. You're right.
Does that tell you that I'm into a lot of your?
Okay. It is a executive order, but we
Go ahead.
are it's really regional specific. we are hearing still people that are getting out on CARES
Mhm.
today, as of last week. Okay. And we don't have any reason to think it's going to stop, but we always want to let people know, hey, we can try. I just don't know. But there are some institutions that we know people are getting, hey, I got CARES back. They've put me in. I'm going to get released here, which is great.
Oh, wow.
I'm hopeful.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing right now. We're also hearing some places they're not. Okay. And when that's the case, that's when you have to do administrative remedy, because you're entitled to it as long as the law, as long as the CARES Act remains in existence, you're entitled to it. And we'll fight for it. Now, Carol's got something to offer.
Unlikely they'll end the CARES Act before
You can talk louder. Carol, could you just, you're a member of the team. It's great when you give them your medical advice.
I think it's unlikely that the CARES Act will be discontinued before the winter months, because they're going to want to see what happens with COVID during flu season and when more people are indoors. So it's unlikely that they would end the CARES Act before they can determine that.
So that's the real advantage of having.
Yep, and I'm monitoring those numbers.
And she is too.
Yep.
She like does a lot of our admin work and also keeps me in line and doing what I have to do. So she's on it. And she's always monitoring the CDC website and using that in the people with whom she's helping. So I always defer to Carol for anything medical related.
Michael, regarding that, this is Larry, sorry. Regarding that, we recently heard from one of our clients, I think it was in the Northwest region, saying that there was a recent impetus to actually, from region, to push on the wardens to initiate more releases under the CARES Act. So that's
and I was just
a recent update.
Last week I was at the regional director 2 weeks ago, who was the one who wrote the BOP's policy, because he used to be the director of correctional program division in DC before he became a regional director. And he actually wrote the memorandum, and he told me that I want to let people, I wrote it and said, if you qualified, I want them out of my institution. So we did hear not only it was actually his region in the North Central region, that they said all people got called. We heard in a camp that said, you're all being assessed right now whether we can release you on CARES. So look,
that's wonderful.
I think that, the Bureau of Prisons is getting better. And I just think it's turning a super tanker that's in a pond, and it's heavy lift. We're going to do our best to help you. That's all I can promise you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
Glenn, you're next.
Thanks. So quick question. So I have I have a better understanding of my main question is around the credits. And like, I understand, like with my sentence, and if I qualified and I got like 12 months of the earned time credits, but what you're saying is, if you, like, my sentence is 48 months. So if you have maximized your 12 months of your earned time credits, if you still do programming, you said that those programming hours can translate and help you with the transition to a RRC or home confinement faster. How does that really work? How does that really apply? Like, how do you?
I don't think that's going to apply to you with a 48-month sentence. I think you're going to actually get as much as you can coming off of your sentence. Okay, I don't think you're not going to be there long enough to get more than 365 days. You'd have to get like 500 days for it to matter, 400 days for it to matter. I think whatever you're going to earn, you're not going to be there long enough to get that much time off, because you're going to you got a 48-month sentence, is that right?
Yes, 48 months, yes.
And you're doing RDAP, right?
RDAP's not confirmed yet, but I'm trying to get it approved. But right now I'm saying no. But when I use the calculator though, Michael, if I do the good time and earned time credits at just 12 months, it puts me in like 24, 28.4, 26.4 months left. If you say you have 24, 26 months left, how do they
That's
determine?
important. That's different. If you're not doing RDAP, that is going to change things. So,
Yes, I was just, yes.
so
So,
once you get to within 18 months of your release date, you no longer get that credit applied to take off of your sentence. Okay. Here's
18
what
months
that
of release
means.
date.
Here's what that means. Okay. Justin, you had an 18-month sentence, right?
18 months. Yep.
Justin had an 18-month sentence, and you got 3 months halfway house, right?
Yep.
Okay. So Justin had an 18-month sentence. You take off statutory good time, that automatically comes off the sentence. As long as you don't get in trouble, you get that. Okay. So maybe that works out for Justin to be 16 months. And then he got 3 months off for RRC. That took it down to like 13 months. Okay. That's because that's what the law was back then. But today, if that were you, and you said, okay, I got a 48-month sentence, hypothetically, as you just said, 24 months, there's going to come a time when you're within 18 months of your release date. When that happens, you will no longer see your release date advance, but that doesn't mean you can't transition to home confinement.
That's what I want to know. Like, how do you, when you, so within 18 months, so 24, take off the other to get, so I have to get to that 18-month mark. Is that before I'm eligible to go to an RRC or home confinement, or can I go at, can it be before then?
That's the complication. Let me see if I can do that on our calculator, which we're still.
And Michael, while you're doing that, there was one other question someone had for Carol. It's in the comments for everyone from Lane.
Well, first, let me answer this.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure you saw it. Thank you.
Okay. So we've got a sentence of 48 months, right?
Correct.
When's the surrender date?
January 5th.
So 01, 05, 23. And a couple of days, probably jail time credit. Okay, A, B, C, D, E. Let me scroll over here. And we're going to put for RDAP, no.
Yeah, and if I get RDAP, I know I can compute that pretty easily, but just saying, like, no.
RDAP, if you get RDAP, this isn't going to matter. If you don't get RDAP, it looks like you get to 18 months within your release date around November of 24. Okay. So at November of 24, that's all you've got. That gives you 26 months before you hit that date. But let's say that during those 26 months, you hit 13 months of minimum pattern score. No, 26 months, did I say? Let's say you get like 15 months of that time. 15. So that's going to come off your sentence. That's 225 days off your sentence. That brings you down to October of 25. Okay. It doesn't give you, you still aren't going to get more than 365. But what that means is you would then be eligible a year earlier to transition to home confinement. So probably October of 24 is what you'd be looking at based on this calculator as we're looking at it right now without RDAP. That's actually what
I kind of had computed, but I just wanted to, like, from a self-advocacy standpoint, like, that's, and I know I've got the CARES Act stuff too, but just without that.
Yeah, you just got to do, here's what, you've been on previous webinars, so you've heard us talk about this before. How do you do that? You've got to get that release plan done. I know you've done that. You've got to stay out of trouble while you're there, which means you got to understand how easy it is to get in trouble. You've got to, do you have a fine? Any type of restitution or a fine?
No, but I've done my financial release plan. I put it at like $150 a month.
Well, you don't have to have that if you don't have a fine. Do you have a fine?
No.
Or restitution?
No.
Okay, well, it's still good then to have that, say, oh, I'm doing this to prepare for finance. That's
correct.
Part of your release. Right. That's good, but you don't have to pay anything. That's good because they violate you if you miss that. That's terrible. You lose credits. And then you go into what's called refuse status, and it's just a parade of horribles follow. So earn time credit, I mean, participate in programs, have your release plan, be respectful of staff, and advocate for yourself as you're getting through this. And we're going to give you stuff, Glenn, while you're there. We're going to keep, we keep sending information to people in prison because it's very easy to get derailed in prison. And we want to help you help yourself. So you'll be getting that stuff in the mail in prison or through core links.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. And Carol, you had a question. Is it this last one, Justin, from Lane?
Yes, sir.
So, Carol, this is the question. When Michael was scrolling through the information on the formulary, I saw something about dermatology. I have looked and cannot find that on the BOP 22 formulary. I'm curious because I have a history of skin cancer that has been increasing recently, and I'm worried about getting proper skin checks and treatment while in BOP custody. Can you come and address that?
Let me look at this one. Have them email me and I'll.
Could you email, and I'm going to, just so you know, I'm going to go to carol@earningfreedomcorp.com. That's my wife. And if you could, Carol with an E, okay, I'm just going to plug it in the chat, carol@earningfreedomcorp.com. And what we'll do, whoever asked Lane, is Carol will do some research that she can. If we don't have the answer, we're going to ask a subject matter expert and get that answer to you. I don't see any other hands up, I don't think, but if I do, just unmute yourself. Okay, I want everybody to have a great weekend and we'll see you next week. I think next week is disciplinary infractions. All right, bye-bye.